Good morning and welcome to the Pastor J podcast. It must be Thursday. You're here and I'm here. And today is Thursday, uh, November the 7th. Can you believe that? 2024. And as always, I want to thank you all for tuning in. You would really bless me if you let me know where you're listening from, what part of the country, what part of the world that you're listening from. If you like to leave a positive comment, hit like, share, and you would really bless me if you would subscribe to the Pastor J podcast. That would really be a blessing for me. Got a lot of things that I want to talk about today in the short time that we're together. Let's pray before we get started. Father, I just thank you and praise you for another day that you have made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it. Father, I thank you and praise you that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Oh Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Today is a little different. We're going to talk about my struggles with Christianity, and it goes to what's really going on here in the United States of America today. Um, Today is Thursday. Tuesday, we had our presidential election between former Vice President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris. Former President Donald Trump won the election fair and square. There is no contestant, nobody's contesting the election. He won it. Kamala Harris, she accepted defeat gracefully. She called him, she conceded. She also said that she would help him in his transition, as all presidents and vice presidents have done in this transition of power, because the system is bigger than anyone. But it's also brought out some hard feelings. And full disclosure here, I voted for Kamala Harris. I voted for her. So you take that as we go through this. You might say, well, he's biased or whatever, and he might be negative toward Trump. Well, obviously, I'm positive toward Kamala, and I didn't vote for Donald Trump. But you're also seeing some things that I've never seen before. I have lived through 13 presidents since I was born in 1956 when Dwight Eisenhower became president. And here we are 13 presidents later, 36 years of the years that I've been alive, 68, 36 of those years we have had Republican presidents. 32 of those years we have had Democratic presidents. So presidents come and go. Presidents come and go. But for me, I have never seen a presidential candidate um, that has been so polarizing to separate us, not necessarily on issues or policy, because Republican and Democratic policies have always been at odds with each other, always have been at odds with each other. The uh, people claim that the Democrats are for more government and more government handouts. Uh, Republicans are saying that we want less government control. We want to be more self-reliant. Well, that way of thinking has been around uh, probably since the 60s, when a lot of former Democrats during the civil rights movement, they left the Democratic Party. A lot of whites left the Democratic Party and went Republican over the issue of integration primarily. And so the Republican Party took on the form basically of majority white, and the Democratic Party took on the form of mostly a multicultural representation of the country. And so the Democratic Party took on things like abortion, took on things like homosexuality and gay rights and LGBTQ plus rights, took on same sex marriage, took on a lot of issues where on the right, the Republicans, they were against these things, and primarily being fueled by Christianity. And today it's called white nationalism. They took on and said, we want to fight against these issues for Christ. And they said, we are against abortion. We are against same-sex marriage. We are against LGBTQ plus rights. We are against immigration. Any type of immigration that we say is not legal, we are against it. We are against issues like dreamers. Dreamers are people who immigrated here. They were born here. They've been here for years and years and years, and yet they are illegal being here. And the Democrats are saying that we should find for them a path to citizenship, while other people are saying they need to be deported. And all these things are out there, and the divide is big. And then we have President Donald Trump, and he did not make this country who it is. He did not make us who we are. I mean, the man, I think he's 78 years old. He did not make us who we are. But what he has done, which I think in the long run will be a good thing. Now, people who have voted against him, like, how can he be good? Because I believe he reveals who we are. He forced us to see who we are, what we are for, and what we are against. And he does things to say, are you for this or are you against this? I'm going to say this. And for some of us, we gasp and say, how can he say that? How can he say that and represent Christianity? And other Christians are saying, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. And even though I believe, as it looks now, especially if you did not vote for him, I've heard people say things like, I'm sad, I'm distraught, I'm dumbfounded, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, I'm bewildered, I'm traumatized. I have no idea what the future will hold based on some of the things that he said. He says he's going to round up 13 million people and I guess put them in concentration camps and then send them back to whatever country, because not everybody came from Mexico. Some comes from several countries. South America is made up of several countries. Latin America is made up of several countries, and people that come across the border illegally, and he's going to round them up. And he's going to send them back, and he's going to fight against certain things that the LGBTQ community wants, and he's going to fight against certain things that African American wants, and all these things. And people are like, what are we going to do? We're going to trust God. We are going to trust God. God has kept us. This country, as a nation, I believe it's around 240 years old. It has gone through all sorts of changes. It has gone through, and the thing about change is that change does not come easy, and change does not come with a fight. But change is always at the door saying, let me in. And traditions are saying, no, you can't come in. But change says, I will not be moved. And unfortunately, in the process of change, and I believe most of it has been positive change in this country, in the process of change, innocent people get hurt. And even some to the point where they lose their lives in the struggle. You know, you're looking at obviously a Black man and the changes that it took to take us from slavery to where we are today, which, in years, slavery wasn't that long ago. My great great grandfather was a slave. Okay. That meant my grandfather's grandfather was a slave. So we're not that far removed from slavery. And then we had Jim Crow and segregation and lynchings and all sorts of unthinkable things. But change kept knocking at the door of tradition. And change says, let me in, let me in. The way this country has treated women In America, if you just a little history lesson, the only people that were ever able to vote were white men that owned land. Those were the original voters here in the United States. You had to be a white male that owned land, which represented wealth. Okay. So if you were a poor white man, if you were a white woman, primarily if you were black, you were probably a slave. But even if you were a free black man in this country, nobody could vote but them. But change kept knocking at the door and saying, "Let me in." And after a while, white men could vote who didn't own land. And after a while, of course, we had the Civil War. We had the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which allowed the ending of slavery, which allowed blacks to become citizenship in the 14th Amendment. The 15th Amendment gave us the right to vote. And even in our right to vote in the South, that change met with great resistance when they came up with Jim Crow laws and segregation but equality. They call it separate but equal in the 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education. And so you have all of these things, but change kept knocking at the door. But in the process, there was always someone there to reveal to us who we are. They didn't make us who we are, but they revealed. And sometimes it forced us to stop looking out the window at others, but to hold the mirror up in front of our face and say, what type of person am I? What type of person am I? And you make that decision. We all make that decision by what we believe and what we don't believe. And then a lot of things that we encounter. One of the things that sells most in Christianity and most in a lot of our lives is fear. Fear. And one of the greatest fear is the fear of change. That you're here and you're down here. Because, see, one of my biggest struggles with Christianity is the idea of superiority. Not only is our religion superior to everyone else's religion, but in turn, that makes me superior to everyone. That makes everyone under me. My theology, my doctrine, the way that I read and interpret the Bible, it all points to one thing, that my religion tells me that when God looks down upon me, he sees a superior human being. And everyone else that's not like me, everyone else that doesn't agree with me, that they are inferior to me. And once you make that decision of who's superior and who's inferior, how you treat them doesn't matter. What you say about them doesn't matter. Whether you degrade, demean, devalue, and dehumanize them, it doesn't matter. And what we saw in this election, it wasn't about arguing over a policy, but it goes to the character of who we are. What type of person am I? What is it that's okay? What can be said about another a Democrat, Republic? I mean, I've seen, if you go on the internet, man, you've seen some Democrats throwing F bombs at the Republicans and Republicans throwing F bombs at the Democrats. So it is not a one sided thing. But you have to ask yourself, why do I degrade, devalue, demean, and dehumanize another human being? It's only because I think that I'm superior and I think that they're inferior. And I believe that's the thing that Donald Trump forces us to look at ourselves and say, how do you really see yourselves? And I believe in the long run, one of my favorite scriptures is in the book of Romans. And I don't know how, it was a great revelation by Paul when he said, and I know all things are working together for my good. Now, he didn't say all things were good, but he said all things are working together for my good. And this is one of the mysteries of God, that how can you take a thing that looks so dark, that looks so bad, that looks so disastrous? How can you take these things? You know, another scripture says that what the devil meant for evil, God turned around for the good. How can you take things that are so bad and appear to be so bad, and somehow you can take that thing and you can make us better people as a result of it? It's a mystery to me. I can't explain it, but I've just seen this in my lifetime, that time after time after time, that people were trying to do something evil, do something bad. Here's the thing: do something that you wouldn't want done to you. Doing things that if you were on the other, if your foot was in the other shoe, there's no way you would want them to do that to you. And yet God can take that. Unfortunately, like I said, innocent people get hurt in the process, and some even lose their lives. You know, one of the things that, again, what are we talking about? My struggles with my Christian beliefs. One of the things that I found that my Christian brothers have driven, who have drifted toward the Republican side and taken on the issue of abortion. I'm not one that supports abortion. Okay, just to let you know who I am, where I sit on this. In certain cases, there are certain cases where I think there are exceptions. It's not flat, never do it. But when you take on this position of abortion, I'm concerned about this baby in the womb. I also want you to be concerned about the child after they get out of the womb. Don't try to convince me that you're more concerned, that you're so concerned about the baby in the womb, but you're not concerned about somebody walking into a school where a baby is sitting in the classroom with a rifle, with an automatic rifle, and this person sprays the room and kill all of those babies. And you say, I want to do something about abortion, but I don't want to do anything about gun control. How do you square that? How do you fight so much for a child in the womb, but you say, I'm not going to do anything about stopping all the violence and the killing that comes after the womb? I think a child should be able to drink clean water, especially here in the United States of America, water that doesn't have lead in it. I think we should have good health care for all of us. Our infant mortality rate in this country is one of the highest in the world. I think that is just as bad as abortion. School killings is just as bad as abortion. The fact that we have young men, and a lot of those young men look like me. Every day on the news, they have guns and they're killing each other. And you say, well, the child never had a choice of whether or not it would live or die in the womb. Well, those children in those schools, when those guns show up, they don't have a choice of whether or not they're going to live or die. Anybody pointing a gun at somebody and saying that I'm getting ready to pull the trigger, they don't get the choice of whether or not they're going to live or die. So we have a whole lot of things that happen outside of the womb that can bring the same death to what you might say innocent people. But again, we have to put up a mirror and stop pointing and say, yes, but they're not for that. Yes, but what are you for? You know, I try to tell Christians all the time, there's no way you can vote against sin. You just pick a sin that you want to magnify that the other person is doing while you ignore the sins. That's why voting in the United States can't be about sin. It has to be about character and who we are, because we can't outvote sin. We can't come up with a law that says that we don't sin. But yet in Christianity, we like to stand up and say, your sin is worse than the one that I allow. No, no. We have to take a good, and I think this is a great time for us to take a real good look at ourselves. And just a word for those of you who are sad and distraught and disappointed, and maybe even going through grief. Maybe you've poured a lot of emotions into the candidacy of Kamala Harris. Step back and let me just encourage you. Here's some pain medicine. Here's some pain medicine. You serve a God that will never leave you or forsake you. Yes, all things are working together for your good. That's some pain medicine. Take a cup of that. Take it. You can walk through the valley of the shadows of death and not fear any evil, for God is with you. Take that. Drink a little of that. That they that dwell in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. For those of you who are walking around and you're fearful about the future, thinking that what this man in the White House is somehow going to hurt us, God has not given you the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? God is with you. We have to trust God. We have to trust God that a lot of things that was said during this election, he will not do. He will not do to people that's going to cause harm, not just to the people that he says he's going to do it to, but even if you got on the economy side, there's no way, they will tell you there's no way you're going to take 13 million people out of this country and this economy will survive, because they're doing a lot of the work. They're doing a lot of the work. They are building the houses. They are paving the roads. They are picking the lettuce. They are picking the tomatoes. And if you think inflation is going to be high now, take 13 million people out of the economy and ask Americans to do the jobs that they're doing for a cheap price. Americans are not going to work at those wages. And really, they shouldn't be. But you take them out and say, okay, we're going to hire Americans to pick the lettuce. And we're going to hire Americans to pick the tomatoes. And we're going to hire Americans to do that work. And we're going to hire Americans to do the constructions, the building of the roads, the building of the home. And you're going to pay them an American way. Yeah. Well, how's that? Who's going to pay that? Well, the people that build the house, the people that buy the houses, they are eventually going to have to pay. And what is that going to do for the price of houses? Skyrocket. That's something to think about. Something to think about. But again, this message, I just wanted to say that just to encourage people. Like I said, presidents come and go. But we have a God that's not going anywhere. And change is inevitable. And change is always knocking at the door of the way that things have always been. And change is saying, I'm coming through with or without you. I'm coming through. And if you really look at all the changes, that have happened just in this country, they've all been changes for the better. Inclusion instead of exclusion. That's my problem that I have with Christianity, is that we're so exclusive. It's just us. It's just us. God is only interested in us. God is only interested in Christian doctrine. I had lunch the other day with a friend of mine, and I was sharing with him that God is bigger than all of us. God was around before there was a Christian Bible. Long before there was a Genesis, God was around. Long before the religions that predate Christianity, like Hinduism, God was around. And God has been talking to, God just didn't start talking to people when he called Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and started the Judeo-Christian, or when Jesus showed up and his followers eventually formed this religion called Christianity, which Jesus is not a Christian. God is not a Christian. Okay. But this is how we identify. And they took on this idea that we're exclusive, we're superior, and we're better. No. God was where the ancient Incas and Aztecs of South America. God was with the Africans long before the Europeans showed up, and a lot of the spirituality that that people learned, they learned from the Africans, the African spirituality. And like I was telling him, it's okay that we borrow things. Even the story in the book of Genesis is not exclusive. That's not a Jewish story. That story, the story of Adam was around long before Moses. Before Moses knew about it, Moses probably being raised by Egyptians, he probably heard a lot of those stories of folklore where they talked about a flood, where they talk about an Adam. And what we do in cultures is that we take these stories and we repackage them for us, and then we present them as if they are unique and unique to us, when in reality we borrowed them from other places. And I was trying to, that's okay. It's okay that we're not superior. It's okay that we're not exclusive. It's okay that we're not better than everyone else, because deep down inside, you know you're not. It's okay. It's okay that God speaks to Muslims and he speaks to Hindus and he speaks to Buddhists and he speaks to Jewish brothers and he speaks to all of them, that they all have a connection to God. It's like I said last week in the book of John 17, Jesus prayed the prayer of oneness, to recognize that all of us are one. Even if you believe the Genesis story, and God said, let us make man in our image, he was talking humanity. He was talking about male and female. And he said, let them see that they are one. But somehow in our cultural differences, we have come up with the idea. And I believe that this was probably one of the biggest challenges that Kamala Harris will have to overcome in this country, and women like her, Hillary Clinton, is the fact that she's a woman. And it's deeply rooted in our culture that a woman cannot lead. Deeply rooted. That's a hard hurdle. Now, in other countries, there are several countries that I think Mexico has one right now. England, India. There have been several countries that have had women presidents, and they survived, and in some cases they even thrived. But in our Judeo-Christian, it's written in our book that when even in the garden, that a woman will always be submissive to a man, and that is so deeply rooted in our Judeo-Christian, that to break that, even though Paul comes along and he says there's no difference between male and female, we're all one in the spirit, and there's no difference between bond or free. But again, that's change. It's knocking at the door. And as change is knocking at the door, tradition is saying, no, you can't come in. You can't come in. But change says, eventually, I'm coming in. I've always come in. And I've made change. And I made change for the better. Always change for the better. I feel like I'm all over the place today, but if this is blessing you, if this is making you to think, or it's allowing you to kind of get over the election and things that have happened, uh, how you feel about this election, and like I said, you're a little distraught, or you're a little depressed, or you're in that position where I don't know what I want to do. And even if you were on the side of Trump, that he wins, man, pray for it. Pray for him. Pray for him that he be surrounded by people who have wisdom, and not just people say, just do whatever you feel, say whatever you want. Because I know a lot of people that even voted for him. They said, I wish he wouldn't act like that. I wish he wouldn't say that. I would never say that. I would never act like that. I get it. I get it. And even those that voted for him, they're holding their breath, hoping, just hoping that this won't disrupt their lives, that this won't somehow make their lives better. I get it. We all need to pray. We all need to pray. But again, God has kept us through so many presidents, so many. He's number 47, which lets us know we've had 46 prior. And some have been good, some have been bad, but we survive. And at my age, 4 years go by real fast. It goes by real fast. And nobody has ever done enough damage that we can't recover from. And I'm praying it be a marvelous 4 years, that we prosper, that we do well. It's not to my advantage that he fails. If he's going to do right, if he's going to do right by our immigrants, if he's going to do right by every group out there, and try to find common ground, because the president is not the president of the Christian church. He's not a pastor. In fact, in the Constitution, it says that no religion should have the influence that the Christian church has in this country. No religion. We should make no laws, including or excluding religion. None. But Christians have come along and said, no, we are a Christian country. We've never been a Christian country. No Christian country would ever have slaves. No Christian country would ever treat women the way we've treated women. No Christian country would ever have had to come up with child labor laws, because we've got children at one time in this country working 14 hours in sweatshops in the mills of the Southeast. No Christian nation would ever have to have anti-lynching laws. No Christian nation. So we need to dispel that and stop saying, well, when the Christians are in charge, then we will prosper. Really? No. When people are exercising their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we will prosper. When people are living their lives to pursue life, that means they live liberty, that they have freedoms, not freedoms that infringes upon someone else's freedom, but there's enough freedom for all of us. The freedom to accept religion, or the freedom to deny religion. That's for all of us. The freedom, because again, my thing, just me personally, man, if what you're doing not hurting me, I'm good. You're not keeping me, and you're not hurting other people, I'm good. Practice your religion, or practice or don't practice your religion. That's what the Constitution gives you the right to do. And I'm not here to bully my way into your life, saying that I have a mandate from God to make you line up with my beliefs and my doctrine in the way that I see it. Because truth is, man, if Christians are going to be in charge, what denomination are you talking about? There are 40,000 different Christian denominations. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be in charge? But again, change is knocking at the door. And that's what excites me, is that I just keep seeing change knocking at the door. And sometimes it's a thick brick wall. but you just have to keep knocking at that thing. And when change comes through, it makes things for the better. Look, I'm gonna cut it short today. I have a lot of things that I want to say. We'll pick up on that next week as we really get into some specifics about my struggle with as a pastor, as a Christian pastor who will be a Christian until the day I die. There are some things that I struggle with that I'm not afraid to talk about, and I'm not afraid to question because I believe questions open the door to learning. That's what question does. When you tell me I can't ask any questions, what you're saying is I'm cutting off your ability to learn. And I refuse to do that. But I know in my Christian teaching, they told me asking questions is a lack of faith, that you cannot question God. And I'm speaking for God. And if God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. Except we're saying all these different things about God. We say all kinds of things about God. We says God forgives the whole world for their sins. Jesus came to forgive the whole world for their sins. And then we say, well, no, God doesn't forgive the whole world for their sins. He only forgives people that ask for forgiveness. Okay, which is it? I got a question. No, you can't ask any questions. You just have to accept what I said. Yeah, but you said two different things. You said things that contradict themselves. Don't ask any questions. Just accept it because I said it. No, I'm not. I'm not. Look, I'm out of time. And like always, subscribe. If this has been a blessing to you, leave a positive comment. Writing down negative comments is not doing you, me, or anyone else any good. It's not changing anybody's mind, and I have control of the delete button, and that's what I usually use, the delete button when people act like that. And you again, hold the mirror up. Why are you like that? I see that on social media. I have people that every time you look at them, they got something negative to say about somebody, and they just going on and on and on. And I block, I delete. I think one brother I just put on snooze for 30 days. I said for the next 30 days I don't even want to see him. And that's one of the things that'll help you. One of the things that I'm doing personally, let me say this before we go. One of the things I'm doing personally to kind of detox away from this election is that I've cut off the news. Told my wife that I'm not listening to any news. I'm not listening to any analysis or anything. I'm going to turn my focus just on God. I'm going to turn my focus on God, not really even discussing it with people. I'll discuss sports. I'll discuss anything. I'm not even going to discuss it. I'm going to process this. I'm going to detox. I'm going to detox, and I'm going to detox by just putting my focus and trust in God. Well, like I said, subscribe to the Pastor J podcast. That would really be a blessing to me. Hit like and share. Look out if you ever want to contact me with a note or be a blessing to the ministry. That is a way that you can do it financially. Let me pray with you before we go. Father, I just thank you and praise you for all those that have come today, that something has been said to stir us up, to make us think, to make us look at things different. Father, not to be upset or worried about the future, because Father, we know that you're already in our yesterdays working things out, and you're waiting for us to arrive. I thank you and praise you for your faithfulness. Now I speak blessings over everyone under the sound of my voice, that they're healed, they're blessed, they're prosperous, their relationships are good, Father. I thank you and praise you for them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Love you so much. See you next time. Bye now.